Beyondich, Johnson,
Here.
Baranzelli, Cuffey.
Here. I believe Councilor Beyondich is on the line. We'll try to get her back on. So we have
Okay.
hopefully a unanimous council present, but we'll make that adjustment if we cannot get a hold of Councilor Beyondich on remote. Okay, today's agenda is before you. We have your council package. In addition to that, there's some additional information that was distributed just a few minutes ago from NTS regarding a technical memo on a project that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to turn this parts of the meeting over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is we have Tom Nemenich from Saga Bituminous regarding the 12th Avenue project. We also have Matt Reed here as well to discuss.
Okay, would one of you want to come up and give a synopsis of what you're asking for here? First, Matt, would you turn on the light there, and please state your name for the record. Obviously, we know you. Matt, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Matt Reed. I'm with SEH. I think the item of discussion this morning, we prepared the final application for payment for the 12th Avenue project. That was the mill and overlay project over by McDonald's that was completed last fall. And part of that final pay application included, per the direction we had been given previously, had been to reduce the final amount by $13,800 in the amount of liquidated damages. And if you recall last fall, it's been a while, so I'm going to try to test my memory a little bit here, but back last fall, I had come before you with some additional engineering costs that we had due to the project running a little longer than we had expected. And at that time, there was some discussion as to whether or not that would be recuperated through the liquidated damage clause in the contract. And so we're to the point in that discussion where we need to make a decision so that we can close the project out. And Mr. Nemenich and Mr. Jamnik are here from Asaba Bituminous, and they can answer questions or may want to say something as well in that regard. So I can answer more questions or try to refresh everybody's memory if you'd like to on where that came from, but.
Yes, Matt, I would have a couple of questions if you could answer, unless Mr. Nemenich and his staff would be able to do so. The total cost of the project was approximately what? It was hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Was.
Okay,
It was,
so,
yes.
so it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the scheduled completion date was delayed from the original scheduled completion date to when it was completed. What was the time frame there?
The original substantial completion date for the project was August 23rd, minus the lighting, and we're going to just forget about that because we
Right.
knew about that from the start of the project. I think all of the work was substantially complete right around the end of September.
So from August,
And August 23rd to September 20th, about a month.
about a month. So you would attribute those delays, and in your professional opinion, to probably a variety of factors or a couple of factors. And what would be an example of one of those factors that would have delayed a project for that, what I would consider to be a short period of time based upon other projects?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, to be honest with you, there was steady progress being made, the whole project. It wasn't as if it stopped. There was consistent progress being made. It just took, the concrete work took quite a bit longer than I think anybody expected that it was going to take. So that was the main, what I could tell was the main driver behind what took so long. And I think it just had to do with schedules with staff and maybe having not enough workers to accomplish the task in a more efficient time from the concrete subcontractor. They did a good job. It wasn't a question of quality. It was just a matter of that it just took that much longer. So that's what I could tell as being the main contributor.
Okay, thank you. And then one more question, in your professional opinion, these projects are bid, based on your best, estimate, and we obviously hold the contractor to that for a completion date within a reasonable amount of time. And one could argue if this was reasonable or not, and in my opinion, that, it's fairly reasonable based upon where the project occurred. And that project occurred on 12th Avenue, which was a high-volume traffic environment where, adjustments had to be made to the workforce, particularly where the driveways of all those businesses and into the mall area had to be accommodated for. And I'm sure that takes a little bit more scheduling as opposed to a regular area where, they wouldn't have those kind of a challenges. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yep, it was a challenging project, yep.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Paulson, do you have any questions regarding this matter?
No, I'm listening to the continued dialogue. I just am wondering, is Steve Trudeau on the line?
We're not talking about that miners project at this time. We're talking about the 12th, we're talking about the 12th Avenue West project that was completed by Mesaba Bituminous and the contractors. And there was a delay of about a month or so between the time that it was supposed to be completed and that it wasn't completed. And there was some additional costs that were incurred from SCH as a result of that. And it's about $13,000. And we're here to decide, I think we deferred it to this spring, and we're here to decide whether or not that was a reasonable amount of money, that $13,000 is based upon that. And so that's where the discussion is right now.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beyondich, are you on the line? Councillor Beyondich? Okay, we'll move to the councillors that are present. Councillor Bearable.
Yeah, Matt, the particular individuals doing the contract work, that was a subcontractor from Mesaba Bituminous, correct? The ones that were doing the contract work, that was a subcontract, correct?
Yes.
My concern is, I live down there and I go by, and there are a lot of days that there were people missing from that concrete work. And if they're missing, they don't get paid for those hourly wages. So how many extra hourly wages were occurred during this time for them stretching that project out longer? And did they have to add extra people that from the original number of contract individuals who were there? I have a concern about paying that extra money, to be honest with you, because of the lack of people being there. And I live only a block away from there, so I drove by there just about every single day.
Can you clarify, Councillor Bearable, are you asking how many extra hours you're
Yeah,
paying for
because
the
they
contractor
were
to be out
missing-
there?
Because there were missing hours in there from when nobody was there. Where
You
they had
didn't, you
days.
didn't pay anything, you're not paying anything extra for that, because the
why
contracts
the
are unit
extra
price contracts, so they're getting paid by the unit no matter what. Whether they're there or not, they're getting paid for the square footage of sidewalk that they're putting in, or the lineal footage of curb and gutter, or the tons of blacktop. It's not a per hour contract. From our perspective, if they weren't working, we weren't there.
So why then the extra cost? Is it because of the extension, because they couldn't get the work completed on time?
It's still
That's what
amounted,
I recall- that's what I
total
recall.
construction time on site still took longer
So
than,
the square footage and everything never changed then, from the work that they did?
nope, other than having to redo a
I
little
have
bit of
I have
sidewalk.
a problem with paying that extra money, Matt. I know if there's rain delays, all that other stuff, I don't have a problem with it. But I have a problem when it's done by the square footage. I don't care what the subcontractor had to do to get that completed. That's not our issue, that's their issue.
Okay.
So, we've had enough of these cost overruns on all these projects all the time, and I'm getting tired of the cost overruns on projects. And I'm sorry, gentlemen, but that's my position on this. So, especially, that's why I asked the question if it was hourly or what you said. If it's by the square footage and whatever, based on that, I have a problem. I don't care how many people they had to use. If I do a project and I need 3 of my friends to do the project that I think I can do by myself, whole different story. Or a contractor that comes in and gives me a bid on a project. So, that's my position, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor Bearable. Matt, would you, there was kind of an communication there between you and, could you please just restate what the issue is there?
Sure. So Councilor Baraboo asked if they had gotten paid additional money for the time when they weren't on site, and the answer is no. They get paid per a unit, per whatever item they happen to be installing. So they did not get paid anything extra. And if they weren't on site working, we were not on site either. It just overall, when they were on site working, it just stretched out and took longer. So in other words, we had a few extra hours that we had to put in on site when they were there, and that's what tallied up to the overrun. And then there were a few other factors here and there, but that's unless these guys have something different that I'm missing, because they may, but that's what I'm seeing as what the main driver behind the delay was.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, Matt, who's the money going to, the subcontract people or to Masabi Bit? Are they out the money?
That's between them and
Okay,
yeah, that the city has a contract with Musabi Bituminous, and how they handle their work with their subcontractors is between them.
so their Masabi Bit is actually applying for the cost overrun then, correct?
No,
No, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get money back for what we had to pay extra to SEH for extra construction management.
right.
So the money's actually going to your,
Already
Already
billed-
it has.
They already billed us for that work. We're
Yes.
trying to get that money back because we had to do a change order with SEH because the project went longer.
so we already paid it then?
We did. And we're trying to get our money back through the contract process.
Yes, I think so. So the question, Councilor Baraboo, is,
Yeah,
no, right,
yeah,
you
that
got it.
makes
All right.
makes a difference.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
I'd forgotten we'd already paid that. We have had good work out of SEH all these years. We've kept them on as an engineer. And Masabi Bit comes in and does our small projects when we need them done and everything. And I don't want to lose them as a contract base because they do good work for us. I just wish these projects wouldn't have these cost overruns. All right, I guess at this point, as long as you've already paid and it's not going to hurt us anymore financially, I'll go along with that, Matt.
okay, thank you. Matt?
For some clarification, since this was a state aid project, your state aid funds will cover these extra costs. I mean, obviously, it's still money for the city, but the state aid will cover these costs.
That I understand that it comes from state aid. I've been around long enough to know where that money comes from. But it still bothers me because that money could be done for an overlay on a block of street in Virginia.
Understand.
So that's where I'm coming from. But I'll go along with leaving it alone.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I remember sitting here having a discussion about why do we have clauses in our contracts about being done on time and then we don't do anything about it. I think we need to start taking a stand on that, and it's what I've said in this room before, that at some point, if you say you're going to be done on August 22nd, then be done on August 22nd. If not, maybe you need to give yourself a little bit extra wiggle room when you're bidding out contracts. I think, to Councilor Baraboo's point, that money could be used somewhere else, and I think that Masabi Bituminous says the contractor needs to be responsible and held to each contract, and we need to continue to do that in the city. If someone does not meet the contract and we have the option of that, and I forget the technical terms, but I think contractors need to know that you need to get your job done, and you need to get it. Now, if it was weather, like we talked about, if it was weather, that's one thing, but it wasn't weather. I happen to know Masabi Bituminous can lay a parking lot in a snowstorm. I'm good. They need to pay. I think that I feel that the $13,000 or whatever we're holding them accountable for, they should be accountable for and figure out where it's coming out of their budget and their time. And then maybe next time they'll either bid better or they'll be more accountable when it comes to getting the project done.
Okay, Councilor Johnson, does anybody else have anything? No light there. Councilor Beyondich, are you on the line? Councilor Paulson, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one question. Britt is saying that we've already paid for this, so by approving this, how does that get us our money back?
Well, we're going to invoke the clause in the contract about the substantial completion date, which was about 30 days or so, right around there, that wasn't completed. And as a result of that, that timeframe, SEH incurred some additional engineering costs as a result of that. Now, our state aid money, the contract was already, money was already paid to SEH, and so this additional monies that we approved for payment for SEH, we are trying to recover by invoking this clause to the general contractor, in this particular case, Mesabi Bituminous, for the $13,000 that we've already paid SEH, and in order to get that recovery of that money back for those additional costs, we're trying to recover that from Mesabi Bituminous, who in turn will have to determine, how the user subcontractors to come up with that $13,000 if we choose as a council to invoke that part of the clause of the contract. Does that make that any clearer for you? Councilor Paulson?
Did you hear my question?
No, we didn't. Sorry about that. Could you repeat that?
Yes, I guess it clarifies a little bit, but my confusion is, how did that $13,000 get paid out of the Minnesota State Aid Fund without us approving that to begin with?
We did approve it. We approved that payment to SEH out of those funds of that entire project. We approved the payment to SEH. The question is, we're trying to recover that payment to SEH through general contractor, in this case, Mesabi Bituminous, because the substantial completion date was about, there was a month delay in the substantial completion date, and the $13,000 that was incurred by SEH. We approved that last year for payment. Now we're trying to recover that, or we're looking at discussing recovering that from the general contractor, invoking that clause about the substantial completion date, which was about a 30-day delay or so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bernzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, I don't know when it was, last week or 2 weeks ago, I'm on 12th Avenue going toward the mall, or 53, and I think it's 10th Street, maybe 11th Street. There's a dip there, a pretty bad dip on southbound lane going toward 53.
Are you referring to the section that's actually north of the church, up by the practice football field? There's a pretty good dip there.
No, this is
South of there, closer to
south of
53?
8th Street. I think it's 10th Street South.
I'd have to look.
There's a good-sized dip on the southbound lane.
And so this was a mill and overlay project. And so if there were previous issues with subgrade that they didn't go in and make all those corrections, that wasn't part of the project. This time of the year, you're gonna see some of that no matter what, just because of the frost. My guess is it will probably level itself out, but it was a mill and overlay project, so that wouldn't have anything to do with what they did.
On the other side of this, the businesses, Virginia Grill, McDonald's, gas station, and then on the west side, they're more than happy with the way you guys kept one lane in and out of their businesses for, I don't know how long that was, 3 months, but they were happy with how you guys did the job. Thank you.
Councilor Johnson?
So we haven't done the final payment to Mesabi Bituminous. We did do the final payment? No.
No.
Okay, so that's what we're discussing, is reducing the final payment by 13 and some change because of the payment we had to make to SCH because of the extended time.
Right.
Okay, so that's what my understanding has been, that we paid you because your service is, and we had that discussion in this room, that what we would do is pay you, understanding that we would be able to take that $13,000 off the total final payment because of the time frame and because it wasn't weather related, because it was a problem with some planning within the contractor itself. Is that a correct summary of what I remember from that meeting?
That is how I remember it too.
Thank you.
That is correct. That's how I
So-
recall as
And
well.
that's where I'm going to stay. That was the discussion we had when they weren't sitting in the room. And I think that has something to do with this, that they weren't sitting in the room, so we're all big, tough, and mighty, but when they're sitting here, it's a little harder to make those hard decisions.
Well, I think that, I think we'll make the hard decision one way or the other, whether they're in the room or not. I think we're at the point in time now where, this is, now we have to make a decision on the final payment. So I think that's what we're discussing today, whether they're in the room or not. The decision is, what's reasonable and prudent, and is it a reasonable decision to withhold 13,000, whatever the number is. Counselor Beyondich, are you on the line?
Yes, I am on now.
Okay, did you hear any of this conversation about the payment plan with the final payment to Mesabi Bituminous by reducing the cost of right around $13,000 as a result of the delays in the substantial completion date, for us to recover the costs that we've already paid to SCH for the additional costs that they incurred as a result of this delay in completion? Did you get all that?
I've been so long. And I know we talked about this last fall, if I remember correctly, all the delays. So what is the proposal? There's a lot of background noise. Is there something outside the council chamber?
Would you want to summarize up, Britt?
Yeah, they're redoing the roof outside, Maya, so we're having a little background noise here.
Oh, sure.
Sorry about
So
that.
if you could, Steve, I didn't hear your last, what you were speaking last time you were on.
Clarify for Councilor Beyondich.
Counselor Johnson? Yep.
Councilor Beyondich, what I did is I clarified that, yes, we haven't made the final payment to Mesabi Bituminous, because when we discussed this last fall, we as a council had basically said we'll pay SCH because their services are required, and we would invoke that clause, or we could invoke that clause for the $13,000 to cover that extra because the reasoning coming from the contractor and not weather-related or other issues, that it was something that came from the contractor. So that's where we were going to recover that $13,000, was by invoking the clause in the contract, and they would have to figure it out once we made that decision.
Does that clarify further for you, Counselor Beyondich?
Yes, and then I missed part of what Councilor Baraboo was speaking about in the beginning also.
Oh, you're looking for a clarification of Counselor Baraboo's discussion?
Yes, please.
Well, Counselor Baraboo, you want to repeat for Counselor Beyondich?
Well, basically, Maya, what I questioned was how the project, whether it was done on a per hourly basis, but it was done on a square footage basis, the contract. So the amount of materials, Matt clarified that for me, it was put down by the amount of materials, and they had a delay due to lack of the number of employees they had working from the subcontractor. So basically, that's what we talked about. And in the end, the project was good. I agreed that we probably should not, reduce the contract. I was all for that to begin with, but after Matt explained what was going on, I decided that I would go along with final payment.
Did you get that, Counselor Beyondich?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments from the council? Any final comments, Counselor Paulson?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, Counselor Beyondich?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, okay. Anybody else have anything? Counselor Friedlieb?
Yeah, I'm a novice and naive and inexperienced in all of the kind of things that all of you guys do, to be honest with you. But, you know, when there's multi-million-dollar contracts or multi-hundreds of thousands of dollar contracts that are awarded, it just seems to me that the contractors, you would think, would have some kind of a contingency within that bid for the kinds of obstacles they may run into. And maybe that's unrealistic, but in my mind, as a consumer, I would think that that's something that they should consider. Because nothing is ever as easy as it seems to me. Even when I'm trying to do work at home on remodeling projects, something as simple as whatever, it takes me an hour, it should have taken 15 minutes per se. I will credit them with, they were very expeditious, other than the delays that came up because of the manpower aspect. They were very efficient in providing access to businesses along the way. So, I mean, the way they went about their work was well done from my perspective. But I am troubled by the fact that the cost overruns that you incurred because of their lack of manpower falls on us to pay that. I would think that there should have been, or there should be within their contract bid, some contingencies for those potentials to occur that they're going to absorb in a multi-$100,000 contract or multi-million-dollar contract. Even just for the sake of conversation, Matt, I was talking to my wife today after looking at the bid for the Bailey's Lake project, $500 to remove light posts, each one. I was like, I can't imagine. And I'm going by like having seen what they did at the Ewens Field, popping out all those fence posts within minutes, it seemed, you know what I mean? I know there's electrical with light posts. Point being, somebody that's completely unknowledgeable about any of this, it's like, holy cow, that's a lot of money for something like pulling something up, snipping the wires and get it and out of there. So I don't have a realistic notion in my head in terms of what actually you guys have to do and the costs you incur for the job that you do. But in this instance, you know, I'm kind of torn between how good a job they did do and how they allowed businesses to continue operating without a whole lot of like obstacles to the businesses. You do run into issues though where guys can't work, somebody's sick. I'm not sure why it was the overrun, but it sounds like a manpower issue. That really shouldn't be on us. I think that should have been within a contingency within the bid in the event that could have happened. Whether that's realistic or not, that's kind of where I'm at. I just don't think we should be accountable in incurring that cost. I think the contractor should, because it was their responsibility to meet that time frame. They were unable to do so because of their issues, not yours or ours. And so I'm kind of struggling with like what we need to do here. You know, money's already been paid, and that's what makes it more sticky, is that it's already been done, and now we're trying to get it back. That's troublesome to me. I don't know the process involved where we already paid it, if there were deadlines involved there or whatever, but reality is if there was an issue, we should have held up payment, is from my perspective. But in any event, I'm unknowledgeable of these issues, and it's hard to make decisions based on that. But when I look at it, like I said, to repeat, when you're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in projects that are bid, if you run into a big boulder you can't remove in 10 minutes, that's going to take you 10 hours. That should be anticipated, I think. Those obstacles should be anticipated and absorbed by the contractor. Whether that's realistic or not, I don't know, but that's how I view it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just one clarifying point there, Councilor Freely, we agreed to pay SCH, who is our engineering firm, the extra money associated with that, with the anticipation that we could recover that cost during the final payment to Mesaba Bituminous, which we would be, if depending on this goes, you could reduce the final payment by that amount of money, which, you know, actually, in essence, would be, the cost would have been absorbed by the contractor. So, Matt.
If I could, I can clarify
Please.
real briefly for
Yep, thank you.
Councilor Freely. So on the payment part of that, you did withhold, so part of every contract that we do, we hold retainage on the project. So it's 5% in this case on this project. So from their payment, every payment is 5% of each payment is withheld for items such as this, or for, there's work that's done at the end of the project when no work is going on. They have to submit paperwork, things like that. So you do have money withheld at this point. So just for clarification, that's what we're talking about. They're not gonna turn around, if you guys end up voting, they're not gonna write you a check. Okay, it's just gonna end up getting reduced off their final payment. As far as the contingency built into the project, I would say if I was gonna bet that most, if not all contractors do build some of that into their bids within reason. Because when we're working on projects, we get out there, and if something comes up, they have to do something different, they just do it. They don't come back and say, hey, we need to get paid $20, $100 for every little thing that goes on. There's some give and take there. So I believe that there is some level of contingency that they build into all of them. The expectation when they're trying to win bids, when it's a low bid award, things like that, it's difficult for them to try to anticipate all of the unknown conditions that come up on project sites. And so where I can appreciate where you're coming from. It happens to me at home when I do those type of projects too. But for them to try to bid a project and anticipate all of the possible unknowns, because we try to account for as many of the unknowns as we possibly can in our plans too, so that they aren't unknowns to them. But at the same time, things come up on projects that are larger scale type things that nobody really knew anything about, and hence why that dreaded word change order comes into play, right? So, but I do believe, and they can talk more about that than I can, but I do believe, based on working with them and working with other contractors, that there is some level of contingency that they do build in to their projects. So just for what that's worth.
Then might I add, then it would be your recommendation that we pay them in full based on the completion of the work that they did?
That's really up to you guys. That's a financial decision that's really up to you guys. I can explain to you what the contract says. I can explain to you what the reasons why it was delayed. They should probably be given an opportunity, if you don't mind, Mayor, to come up and
absolutely, yeah.
explain. And then you guys will have, that's really a decision for you guys to make.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Matt Reed at this time, our engineering of record? Councilor Paulson, any more other questions for Matt Reed?
No.
Okay, Councilor Beyondich, any more questions for Matt Reed?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt, appreciate it. Mr. Nemenich, you or anyone of your staff like to come up and kind of give us an overview of what you're asking for? And welcome to the community home meeting. If you just push the button, green button there, and please state your name for the record and the company you represent, and welcome.
Tom Nemenich from Asabi Bituminous. I guess I'm just here on our behalf in regards to the liquidated damages on the project. Just to reiterate, I mean, he basically talked about everything that went on. I don't so know much that it was like a lack of being diligent on the work. There was a few different issues that our concrete subquarry had to deal with that maybe a lot of people might not grasp. As far as the concrete work, you know, our portion was the removals and then the blacktop in the end, and we did our portion, the blacktop, we pushed it back a couple days after Labor Day weekend. We'd made the decision and decided not to try to do it on a Thursday or a Friday. We went to Tuesday and Wednesday after Labor Day just because of the traffic and everything else. But as far as the concrete work that took the amount of time it did to get where we're at, this was a ADA project, and there's like the pedestrian ramps and setting the concrete up. There's new guidelines to follow to do these pedestrian ramps and to get them to the proper grades and stuff, and they're really, really strict. So part of the problem that even with new construction projects, most contractors that are doing this, concrete people, they're really struggling with these radiuses and the pedestrian ramps to try to get the proper grades, even on new construction. So this project particularly, the pedestrian ramps were removed, sections of sidewalk were removed, and you're trying to tie in new pedestrian ramps with old curb and gutter, old radiuses, and you're trying to field fit a lot of this stuff. There was some of those radiuses and stuff they put together and took apart 2, 3, 4 times to try to get it to work, because it's, it's not like just taking a new plan for the job, like if SCH designed a whole new curb radius and street where it's more controlled, you know, they really struggled with that aspect of it. With that, knowing that and getting towards the middle of the project, we actually brought in another sub, Knife Lake, to help them out, which cost us $6,000 more than what the bid was. Just because I knew we were getting to the point where we were gonna start running into problems with time, and we actually brought in another contractor just to try to shove it along to get it so we could try to get it done in time. So I guess, you know, on our behalf to try to see if there's anything that can be done. I mean, it is what it is, you know, but there's more to it than just like lack of being diligent of working. I mean, they did struggle with that. And also on Winger's behalf, there was a bunch of stuff that, I mean, there was, I don't know, how many sidewalk that they came in and removed. There's a stretch of sidewalk that it didn't meet the compliance, and when I mean it didn't comply, I mean, on a 4-foot level, we're talking like the thickness of a dime. That's how thick, you know, I mean, from a 2% to a 2.5 in 4 feet, I mean, you could slip a dime under the under level, and you could go one way or the other, but when it's an ADA project, I mean, it's just not like somebody can let it slip and say, yeah, that's close enough. I mean, you don't want somebody coming back and, you know, saying, you know, we're gonna pull your funding now because it doesn't meet compliance. It's not like it was that far out of spec. We're talking. And Corey actually came in, removed that all on his own dime, made it right to try to get, you know, so we wouldn't be here now at this time hoping to have this done in the winter time, and we're still kind of sitting trying to close it out. He did make a pretty diligent effort on that behalf. You know, I know on a whole nother note, I know a lot of people, you know, you look at a contract and you put a completion date in there, and, you know, I'm not saying projects around the Iron Range and in Virginia, and there's ones that we haven't been diligent on. This one we tried to be, and you're a small contractor and you're bidding these jobs, and I always say, you know, you got to kind of look at some of the other bids, not just Virginia, other towns get when you got a small contractor come in. I mean, a lot of times we're several $100,000 cheaper than other people just because we're a small, competitive, local company, and it's hard, you know, for us. You know, there's all these completion dates you try to meet, and everybody, oh, you know, Mesabi Tumas, they're behind on this one or this one. And we're servicing, you know, the whole Iron Range, trying to, you know, to keep a busy schedule for our guys. It's not like we don't diligently look, well, heck with Virginia, we're not going to finish that one. That's not the point, you know. It just, sometimes they end up going past, and, you know, what are the odds? I mean, if we didn't bid and say, well, we better not take that one, you might pay $200,000 more for this street if somebody else would. Maybe not that in this case, I don't know what the other bids were, but it's just something to keep in mind, you know. Only so many working days in the summer, and the last 4 summers have been really wet, you know. So people, you know, like us struggle a lot to try to meet schedules. The biggest thing on this particular one was that ADA stuff that, you know, Corey really struggled with. And I think he did make a pretty diligent effort. I mean, especially putting them together, taking them apart, putting them together, taking them apart. There was several that you bid these things back to, you know, the competitive bidding part. I mean, everyone that we bid, you know, whether it's whatever we do, I put into my mind what I think we can do it for, how many days it's going to take, and it's not like, well, we better add 4 days on there. You're trying to win the bid and on a certain amount of percentage of what you can do, and a lot of times there's not a lot of extra money. There's jobs that we don't, you know, maybe break even, and I'm not BSing, you know, you're breaking even just to keep the guys busy. And the only other thing I was going to add was that the total contract amount of the job was $731,420.35, and the total amount earned before the deductions was $718,657.24. So actually, you know, it came in under budget too, I guess.
One more time, would you tell me what the total cost was, your bid was?
The total contract amount was $731,420.35, and the total amount earned was $718,657.24. That's before deductions.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, that was going to be my question for you. Okay, so we all had discussion here about what we're going to do, if we're going to try to recover the costs by reducing the final payment. And nobody likes change orders. Nobody likes the fact that, whether you went over the time frame or whether you had, 15 different change orders as a result of it. I didn't see those kind of things as you're moving forward in your process work. So, I don't like the extra charge to SCH either. However, if you look at what the total project cost was in this particular case, $731,420, my question is, what was the next highest bid? Mesaba Bituminous being the lowest bid, do we know what that other bid was? It was higher, obviously. So my question is, how much higher? So was it 13,000? It was higher. So my question would be, if that other bid was higher, who knows if we would have change orders there? We don't know that. That's an unknown factor. But the fact is that, say for the sake of argument, that the next lowest bid was X amount of dollars. And I would like to know that, because if you look at what the next lowest bid was, and if that, or the next, the second to, the bid just higher than Mesaba, how much was that more? Was it $80,000 more? Was it $45,000 more? What was it? So if Mesaba Bituminous didn't get the low bid, even by adding this additional $13,000 into the payment, which I understand the arguments for, is that less than what the bid would be? So my question is always, if you have the low bid and you bid it out and we give you the bid, and then there's 50 different change orders which actually make the bid higher than what the other bid would have been, we could have accepted that bid instead. But in this particular instance, I don't know what the change order issues were with respect to the entire project, but I would venture to say that, and I would like to know what that next highest bid was. Obviously, it had to be more than the additional $13,000 that we're trying to recover. So that's the way I look at it. Nobody wants to make the payment. Nobody we're trying to save as much money as we can. I can understand that. There was a 30-day delay in respect to that. It wasn't costs that were incurred by you, with Mesaba Bituminous. It was incurred by SCH, who was our engineer of record. We paid additional money for as part of this entire project. So my question is even with the additional costs associated with the $13,000 that we're looking at, that we're disputing or just we're talking about discussing today, well, I want to know what that other bid was. If it says $731,000, the other bid was $800,000 or $790,000. I mean,
Then we still save money.
so I guess that's my, so I look at it from that perspective as well. So those are my comments. Councilor Paulson, did you have anything you'd like to add or any questions?
Yes, Mayor. Can I ask, did you guys get a handout today with any of this financial information? Because I don't find anything in my packet under item number 1 in the packet.
No, we don't have anything. I think we're just, he's making Mr. Nemenich, on behalf of Mesaba Bituminous, is here to discuss that. We haven't made a decision on that, and we probably don't have to make it.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. I think that's what I'm trying to understand is we're being asked to make a decision when there's nothing from Matt, there's nothing in writing. You're asking how much was the total project, how much were other bids. We don't have any of this information, and we're being asked to make a vote. And I just think that's not responsible. And unless and until things get put in our packets where we can absorb and process the information, I just can't vote on it. So I would move to table this till we get further information.
Yeah, Councilor Paulson, the purpose of this was not to make a vote today. The purpose of it was to get a presentation from Mesaba Bituminous. They asked to come and speak on behalf of their company. We don't have to take a vote today, although we want to close out, as quickly as we can. But in order to do so, I think I agree with you. We need to have all that information. So you are moving to table right now?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Councilor Paulson is moving to table this for further discussion, for more information regarding the Doesn't want to take a vote, so the move is to table. Is there support for that? Is there support to table? Is there support to table?
I will support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich to table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I did have the other quote if you'd like to hear what it was at this time.
Got to take this vote first.
You have to take the roll
Take
call
the roll
first.
call first.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
to take a vote to table because we didn't have that information before us already, unfortunately. There's a
Yeah, I
motion.
put my hand up. I don't know if Britt sees it there to talk.
Okay, well, I guess it's
No.
unfortunately because of the issues we have to overcome with this remote stuff. There's already a motion to table, so we have to, we can't get to have that information right now. So we can after we vote on this tabling motion.
Okay.
So thank you. Just hold that for thought for one moment, Pam. And
Barabo,
No.
Friedlieb,
No.
Carlson,
Yes.
Beyondich,
Yes.
Johnson,
No.
Baranzelli. Did he say no?
he said no.
Okay. Cuffey.
No. Motion fails, 5-2. Okay, Pam, the second quote, what was that for? Can you provide that to us?
Yes. The second quote was AGM for $767,229.42.
I'm sorry, we didn't get that.
767,228.
767,228, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Can we discuss this any further? It's already been tabled.
No, it hasn't been.
And it hasn't been tabled yet?
Oh, it failed.
It failed. Thank you for that clarification. I'm 68 years old. I use that quite a bit. Okay, Counselor Bearable, did you have a comment?
Yeah, basically, what are we looking at, to Matt, for final payment? What's the dollar figure on that? Because that never was put forth.
1,096 total or the actual, I'm sorry?
Well, the differential, we still need for final payment.
So with the liquidated damages left in, it would be $25,896.61. That would be the final payment, if I did my math right here. Sorry, $35,896.61.
And that includes the $13,000 reduction.
It does.
That includes the reduction?
That has it in there. If we took that out, the payment would be $22,096.91.
So what have we actually paid them so far without the final payment?
So far, $682,035.63.
Did you get that, Counselor Paulson?
So that's still coming way under the bid, then it's still at 718 total, so I don't have an issue. They saved us 13,000 anyway.
Yeah, he was right. It came in underneath the original bid. It actually came in under, there was only one change order, and it was actually a deduct. So it did come in, even with the final payment, it would still come in,
718,
yeah,
657.
right around there, yep.
Counselor Paulson, did you get that information that the next bid was
Yes.
7? Okay, thank you. And Counselor Beyondich, did you get that as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Please continue, Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, so since it is still coming under bid by 13,000, I'm going to stick with my original deal once we get all the paperwork and the numbers for our council meeting on that. Be very clear to everybody once we get those numbers for the council meeting next week. But we're still saving $13,000 over the original bid, so that's my point, even with the change order.
Matt, for the council meeting, can you prepare a written synopsis of all this information? The original bid, where we're at with the change order, the one change order, the previous that decreased it, what the total final payment is now with and without.
Yep.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Counselor Freely.
Just real quick, Tom, I want to say that like your explanation did assist me in understanding the fact that you do run into justifiable and legitimate obstacles along the way, particularly having to meet the standards of like ADA specifications and the complexity of like integrating old construction with new construction. That's not something I would have even contemplated. So, I mean, it's realistic in my opinion, legitimate and justifiable for whatever occurred, for the potential for having to be paid accordingly. So, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Johnson?
I have a question. That $13,000 is the most we can not pay them. We could adjust that downwards to accommodate for other things, right? Like this isn't a solid number. We could come up with somewhere in the middle that, hey, this is your warning shot. Next time, make sure you get it right. But we do understand that there were other challenges you couldn't have predicted. We can figure that out. Is that an option?
Matt?
Yeah, so the way the contract is set up, it's actually a per day dollar amount. It's $1,200 per day. The number that you've got here is $13,000. That was your actual cost. The per day cost would have been much higher than this if you were going by the contract. That said, this is the cost that you've incurred, so it's not going to be more than that.
Could you give us that when you do the written synopsis? Could you put what we could have done? If we had done the per day, what that amount would have been, and then this is the reduction that where we're just recovering our actual expenditures. So we've already kind of done that. My understanding, we've already kind of done that mediation where we could have charged you if it was 30 days, $36,000 extra. Instead, we're doing 13 because that's what our cost was.
I can add that in there, and just to be clear, I guess, there again, per the contract,
Yep.
that's an estimated amount of what a daily cost might be. So when you're looking to recuperate liquidated damages, all you're really trying to do is recuperate your lost costs,
Okay.
right? So just so you understand what that means, is all you're trying to do with liquidated damages, you're not trying to penalize anybody that's a different contract language, right? So yes, I can put that in there.
Yep. Well, because I just, that we're having this discussion about $13,000, and I'm pretty sure on Tuesday we're going to be having a discussion about $3,700 with a bid we haven't awarded yet. So I'm a little frustrated that we're willing to pay, but we're not willing to pay, and that's beyond this specific project. But that's also playing in my head, my decision about how do we do this so that we are being fair and equitable to all of our contractors. So I guess the reason I voted no on the tabling, because I want to have this discussion. I want to have all that information in front of me ahead of time so I can look at it and make informed decisions. So I appreciate your willingness to put a sheet together. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Anybody else that's present today that'd like to give any other information before we go to Matt or Mr. Nemetich again? Counselor Paulson, do you have anything you'd like to add? This is an ongoing discussion. It appears as though we're gravitating toward bringing this issue to the next city council meeting, and we're going to be looking in some degree to some form of a motion in which to do that. I think we've got the foundation laid for that already. But any other comments or concerns or questions that you might have?
No, Mayor, I guess that things are a little bit clearer, but I think that's why I made the motion to table, was to get additional information in writing. So that will suffice. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Counselor Beyondich?
I should be good. I just get frustrated with change orders on whatever project we seem to be working on. So I think it was clarified, but I guess I too would like the information before it comes to the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Beyondich. It's our understanding from Matt Reed, SCH, our engineering firm of record, and the information received from Ms. Saba Bituminous and Mr. Nemenich, that we are looking for some additional documentation to review before the next council meeting, so we make a decision at that time. So I think that's what we're looking at. So I'm looking for a motion in some regard from the council moving forward. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, Mayor, I will make a motion that our engineering firm, SCH, provide documentation numbers for the council meeting, and that we get them so Pam can include them in our packet before we actually get to the meeting. Can you do that by Friday? Okay, thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there support for that? Moved by Councilor Bearable, supported by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson, any further discussion?
Could you just repeat the motion? It was hard to hear.
Go on. Motion by Councilor Bearable, supported by Councilor Freely, to have Matt Reed, our engineer of record, put together the numbers in a packet of information for us to review prior to the next city council meeting, so we can make a decision on the issue that we're discussing today.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on that, Councilor Paulson?
No, Mayor, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Freely, do you have some further discussion?
Oh, no.
Okay, further discussion? Councilor Johnson, no further discussion? Anything from Mr. Nemenich and his crew? Anything more from you, Matt? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Was that an aye, Councilor Beyondich?
Yes, it was.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Very much. The next item on the agenda is the proposal from Takala Farms for the removal, hauling, land application, and incorporation of biosolids for the 2020 spring season.
This is an annual
Annually.
bid quote, and Takala Farms has been the provider of that for a number of years, I believe. So, Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, they have been, and they've been a good partner in this biosolids to get eliminate them from our thing. Isn't this a little less money than last year?
Yes, and I can't remember the dollar amount, but it is a little bit less.
A little bit less. So I'll move that we approve the $16,600 for Takala Farms for the removal of the biosolids to their fields.
Okay, moved by Councilor Bearable. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
I have a comment.
We have some discussion right now, and Councilor Johnson has the floor. It was moved by Councilor Bearable and supported by Councilor Barnzelli, Pam.
Yes, this is not the annual contract that we normally approve. This is just a one-time bid for removing the biosolids that were not able to be removed during the process when they were kind of shut down or whatever for a bit there with the plant. So this isn't the annual contract that we normally approve. This is just a one-time deal.
Okay, thank you
Just
for
to
that
clarify
clarification.
that.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification, Pam. Does your motion still stand, Councilor Bearable?
Well, I want to make sure that this isn't an additional cost from what our normal contract is. Pam, do you know what the normal contract for the year? Because if it's a huge excess, are we out of storage space down at the sewage treatment plant? Because we usually store this stuff for putting on land application. This is just an extra removal? Is that-
Correct. it is extra.
So do we need it extra? Is there not enough room for the storage of this down there? I thought we had plenty of storage room because we usually remove that stuff once a year, if I remember right.
Because of, I don't know the exact, how to state it, but whatever went on at the wastewater plant over this last summer, they could not dispose of the biosolids properly. That's why it has to get done now as a separate transaction.
So it didn't
The
get,
actual contract isn't due until October, when we actually go out for bids.
so basically they're saving money then for the previous year then if they didn't remove this stuff. So how the heck are we supposed to pay extra then? That's my question.
That would be a good question for Bill Hennis.
Okay, we need to ask him before the council meeting on next Tuesday then, before we approve this. I'm gonna withdraw my motion on this one for now.
Counselor Bearable withdraws his motion. Do you withdraw your second? Let's get a clarification then and for the next council meeting, that's all, and make a decision then. So let's, we need a motion for that, we do.
I'll make a motion that we get a clarification from our engineering department, Mr. Hendis, on the need for this additional cost for the council meeting next Tuesday.
Okay, is there support? Support by Counselor Freelieb. Yeah, I think we have to discuss it, but it's got to be removed one way or the other, if it's, right? So I guess you was looking for some clarification. Any further discussion? Counselor Paulson, any further discussion? We're moving this.
I do have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, I do have a question. Is this extra biosolid have anything to do with that study that they're conducting?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, good question. Counselor Beyondich, anything else for you? From you?
No, I'm good.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Counselor Johnson?
Britt, could we get an email explaining what's going on here? Because I see this is addressed to Mr. Moe at the Public Utilities, and it refers to biosolids at United Taconite, and it's very confusing to me as to exactly what this is. So if we could just, if I could get, or we could get an email from whomever explaining in layman's terms what's going on here. 'Cause
Absolutely.
it's, because it's, I'm guessing because it's the sewer services billed through the utilities, but it's our service, and that's kind of part of it, so.
Correct.
So if we could get a little snapshot of what's going on here and why there's all the stuff in here, that would be helpful for me too.
Okay, that'll be added to the information that's being requested in this motion.
Mayor, maybe I
Counselor
could-
Bearable.
Yep, I think Bill Hennis just jumped on.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, sorry, I was having a hard time getting in. This is for biosolids that were created during the time our digester was down. As such, they don't meet the qualifications of our regular biosolids to be disposed of and had to be kept down there separately. As such, we need to free up that space down at our storage area, and this is to get rid of those basically non-qualifying regular biosolids that we dispose of in the fall.
Now, that's a great clarification, Bill. Thank you. Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, so Bill, what you're saying is we couldn't squeeze the stuff right, no, it didn't have the right consistency of stuff for land application, correct? Okay, is that correct, Bill? I'm guessing that's what's happened.
Yeah,
so.
that is a really good description, Charlie, because we couldn't process it correctly. It's not qualified to be spread like it normally is with our contract, is what Bill is saying. So we have to treat it separately, and Takla Farms has agreed to haul it to United Taconite, who's agreed to accept it and to make room for our normal biosolids down at the facility.
That's a great explanation from Mr. Ennis.
Okay, so, but we still have a motion on the floor and support to move this to the next city council and get some additional information, which is fine. That information that, Bill, that has provided to us is really helpful, as we review, the remaining part of that. It makes us easier for us to make a decision at the next council level. Thank you, Bill, for that clarification. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson, any further discussion?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Councilor Beyondich?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion from those present? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. Aye, aye, aye. Okay, ayes have it. Unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is permission for a resolution to apply for the IRRB grant for the Bailey's Lake Trail Project. We've already have funds from LCCMR in the amount of $550,000, which would cover the base bid that we are looking for bids now. In addition, we have a bunch of alternates, bid alternate 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we would like to seek IRRB funds to ensure that we can do bid alternates 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we are seeking a resolution to allow us to apply for a grant.
And I think that, we didn't anticipate the bids to come as high as they did. They did beyond, no?
Haven't got bids in yet. They're out for bid right
They're
now.
not bid yet? Oh, these are estimates. I'm sorry. I apologize. These are just estimates, okay? Estimates.
Estimates.
Sorry about that.
And to
okay.
give a little history, we had asked LCCMR for $650,000
Yes,
for this project,
yes,
but they
yes,
cut
we
us
did.
down $100,000.
Yes, they did, yeah.
So-
Yeah. Yeah, we testified
did testify.
at committee level at the legislature, and there was a question that they had about the pier, right? Why can't you the pier separately? And I think so that's why they knocked $100,000 off, right? Correct? But the pier is still in there. So we're looking for some
We're trying
cash.
to find some money.
We're good for some more
Yeah,
money.
we'll see if the IRRB can help us with the extra money that we need.
Okay, so we're looking for a resolution from the council to apply for an IRRB grant to help us assist with these items 1 through 5 for the Bailey's Lake Trail Project. We do have a base bid of what, $550,000?
$554,352.94.
Okay, very good. We have that, and we're looking for some additional money from the IRRB and looking for a motion from the council to pass a resolution requesting those funds.
Could I just ask,
Councilor Freely,
what is the city's obligation for, if we receive all of these grants, what's the match that, and are we budgeting accordingly to make that?
We had budgeted, the Lakes Beautification Committee has funds held in the city that they had vowed to this project. However, we are asking IRRB for $250,000,
Which would be,
most of the funds.
all right. I would make that motion to move forward with the application for the IRRB grant for the Bailey's Lake project.
moved by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion? Councilor Paulson, did you hear that motion and second regarding that?
Yes, I did, and I have no further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
Yes, I heard, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion and support to move forward with the resolution to apply for IRRB grant money for the Bailey's Lake project. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the review the estimate for soil corrections at city-owned lot and industrial addition. And this one kind of has a long history, and I did email and also handed out the technical memo from NTS, kind of highlighting what's been going on. We had agreed through a development agreement with Pana Gold to locate a building in our industrial addition, kind of to the west of Blue Cross Blue Shield. They went to go dig, and they found a barrel. And this, I would ask Bill or Matt to jump in if I go wrong here at any time. They found a barrel of material that's still I don't know that we still know what's in the barrel, or are quite unsure. It's not good. Unfortunately, because the city was the owner of the lot, we have to pay to get rid of the barrel. So we did get emergency IRRB funding to assist with that removal. We've been working with the MPCA, and the MPCA says they will allow a building to go on there, however, they require that we remove all the fill up to is it 6 feet or 6 inches, or, it was quite a big, I think it's 6 feet. So the estimate to remove all that fill is $330,000. So Panagold is saying, well, they don't have that in their project funds. And I precursorily told them, I don't know that the city has that in our funds either, but that I would ask the council if we wanted to proceed with the development agreement.
So the question that I would have for you, Britt, is that by proceeding with the development agreement on this project, that means they're going to be able to build on the lot that we have assigned to them based upon that. And so in addition to that, the MPC is requiring that regardless of whether or not we put a building on there, even if we don't put a building on there, we still have to remediate, right?
You have to remediate, but it's a very different remediation if it's a building versus sitting.
Right. So the question is, there's 300 and some thousand dollars worth of correction that needs to be done.
Estimated if we want to put a building on that lot.
If we want to, so that's the estimate. So,
estimate.
looking at the letter, I think the email was that if this wasn't feasible to do so, they were still want to build in Virginia looking for an alternative site.
Correct.
Right? So, the question for us is that, where's this money coming from, right? That's what you're asking. Of course, Panagold is going to come up with the $330,000 to build a building there. Heck, that's more than the cost of the building itself. So, so even if we don't put a building on there, the question is, we still have to remediate, correct?
We do. And if we don't put a building on there, we have time.
We have
And
time.
we can enter the voluntary fund and time to work on it.
Yeah, we have time to look for that money,
Correct.
which may not be 330,000, could be less or more.
Correct. And depending on what's there, and there's a lot of big terms in here that I don't know what these things mean. There are other methods if we don't build on that we can work on, such as seen it before at the gas plant, supercharging, where you put soil on top and fence it off and agree that nobody can touch it again for so many years. There's things we can do differently. It's just building is a little bit different than leaving it sit.
So the question for us is, if we look at, we're looking at the soil corrections on the city-owned lots. So we decide on the estimate for the soil corrections.
Do we want to proceed with correcting the soil for the building, which is estimated to be $333,656.25?
So if we don't, we still have to find a way, and we have time to remediate the soil remediation in that regard based upon what we have to do. We have time in which to do that, apply for other grants for that purpose. However, Panagold is,
Still looking for a location.
we're looking for another location for them. So I guess from my perspective, I'm looking for some direction that why would we enter into an agreement with a building on there when we're going to have to find $330,000 or more to remediate the soil in order to put that building on there, whereas we could likely maybe find another spot in Virginia. So my second question is, do we have any other spots identified for Panagold to put their warehouse there?
We are actively seeking, but I don't have anything at this.
We're actively seeking. We don't have anything. We don't have anything in the city-owned lot, and that's what they're looking for, right? From city-owned parcels, right? There are some private parcels that are available that would accommodate them, but they're looking for a city-owned site. So thank you for that clarification. So we are now in the discussion stages or reviewing the estimate for the soil corrections with respect to that. So you're asking if we do, we're reviewing the soil corrections, and if so, you're asking us to follow through with one way or the other to enter in a project development agreement to put a building on there?
We already have the project development agreement. I need to know if we want to proceed with the soil corrections.
Okay, thank you. We have the project development agreement already, that's right. And so do we want to proceed with the soil boring corrections, which is $303,000? So I open that up for discussion. First, Councilor Bearable.
Britt, have we checked to see if there are ever any storage facilities that might have leaked in that area close enough to leach into that property for looking at, because some of these chemicals you see in there are covered under the Superfunds. Have we ever done any investigation? I can't see spending that money at this point until we investigate to see if there, because there were a lot of, in the old days, there were a lot of storage tanks and facilities that were above ground in that area, could some of those have leached and leaked?
Very much, very well could have, yes.
Yeah, so I would like more investigation. I can't see spending money on that right now. Put it on hold right now.
And that's Panagold's question. They email me quite repeatedly asking what we can do about the site. Unfortunately, MPCA does not move quick, and so if we start an investigation, it's going to take time, and it's going to be not the time frame that Panagold is looking for.
Very good, thank you. So you need a motion from us.
I need a decision. Do we want to spend the estimated $330,000 on this lot?
Very good, thank you. Counselor Johnson.
Just for clarification, on the picture we have, there's the big red outline and there's the 125 by 125. Is the black outline, that's specifically what we're talking about?
That's for their building footprint. That's
Okay.
what we asked the MPCA. We had originally sold MPCA the whole site. When we found the barrel, we said, okay, how about if we just dig up this much of the site? And the MPCA said, that's fine, but once you start digging the lot, you're going to dig the whole lot and you're going to remove everything.
So that makes sense. The other thought that popped into my head is if we can't use this land to develop later, is it potential dog park land for the
Absolutely.
future if we don't disturb anything? So that was just my
And
thought.
from my
So-
understanding, and this is where Matt and Bill can jump in, it's the digging in the soil is the issue. The way it sits is fine. It's just digging is the problem. So the foundations are what really is the problem with a building going on here.
And, go ahead,
I
I'm
would
sorry.
move that we direct staff to enter into a different development agreement. Is that what you need, or?
No,
How about not to proceed with the,
To discontinue the current, okay, I will move to discontinue the current development agreement with Pan O Gold,
for this site.
this site.
Thank you. Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
For discussion.
Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Counselor Freely.
Concern I would have is, we did make a deal with Panagold, and they already have ordered their warehouse materials, which are ready to be constructed. So this puts them in a heck of a fix too, after already making the investment on the building that they were gonna place on our property that turned out to be non-buildable in a sense. So, I guess it makes sense for us to pull back on that site, but then to pursue with vigor somewhere else that they could. And unfortunately, they already had purchased that building because there's a large warehouse available on the north side of Virginia right now that was abandoned by Coca-Cola that might be appropriate for their needs, So I don't know if they can return their building to Morton or not, but point being, nothing is ever as easy as it seems, is it? We'll give you the land for $1, but it's gonna cost us $330,000 to clear it for you. Wow. Anyhow, yeah, I support not moving forward with that, but then we need another motion after this on behalf of Panagold, I would think.
I think we could just direct staff to look for more property for them moving forward, try to find a spot in Virginia. But, so the motion on the floor is to not move forward with the soil corrections of that, on that particular site, and discontinue the agreement with Panagold for that site-specific parcel for building of their new facility. Is there further discussion? Counselor Paulson, do you have any further discussion on this? Did you hear the motion?
Yes, I actually have a question.
Sure.
The property by Super One North, does Scenic River still have that, I guess, under contract with us?
no, they have backed out of that.
Yeah, that's,
So is that lot available?
It is.
Okay, so maybe we could offer that.
I sure can.
And my other thought was, at the Fintown Flyway, it used to be, I think, was it a skateboarding thing at one point, or I don't know exactly what it is, but do you know the building I'm referring to?
Yes, the former curling club.
that's owned by the HRA.
Okay.
They have parking spaces in there for
okay.
their clients.
That's HRA. Okay. I just was thinking of suggestions, but I don't think it's prudent for us to have to spend that kind of dollars. So I think we're doing the right thing.
I
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Beyondich, anything?
Yes, I can see the dilemma that we're in, but at this time, nobody saw the COVID-19 coming. And I just, looking and seeing what is happening in other communities, I just don't feel it's right for us to be spending money at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. So it's been moved and supported to discontinue the investigation. And Pam, did you get that motion?
What was that, Pam? We didn't hear you.
Yes, I did get the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Councilor Barnzelli has some further discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. That lot that you talk about up by, how big is that? Is that 37 and a half or is that a 25-foot lot?
You mean where
That's-
Coca-Cola has?
No, 14th Street.
Where on 14th Street?
Britt was talking about that. The house was tore down. It's on the north side of Makowski's there, up that street.
That's residential.
Yep.
Not industrial.
That's not for us then.
No, not for this particular project, Councilor Barnzelli.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous aye, no opposition. Motion passes. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the change order request for Owens Field demolition, and I believe everybody had gotten this by email from Pam today. And we also have on the phone representatives from Kraus Anderson, and we have Ms. Bituminous here as well.
Okay, well, let's first hear from Mr. Trudeau with respect to this change order for Owens Field. I'm sorry, Carl. Carl's on the line. Carl, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mayor. The difference, the change order would be we didn't understand that the bleacher material and a lot of the items that were going to be sold to the school district would be actually sold. We understood that they were going to vacate the lot and remove their materials, such things as, their hurdles and things like that. We did not understand that that's everything, would be up for sale, including, for example, the tin on the shed or the whole shed removal, the bleacher material that seemed to be permanent to the property. And I believe it's Tom that's in the room. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you assume that some scrap value was in that material. So that would be the reason for the change in the price there.
So, Carl, Masaba Bituminous made a bid, a good faith bid for that project. And under that agreement, they were going to salvage that material. That should be part of their.
Correct.
Okay. And so then it was discovered that the school took possession of the goalposts, the bleachers, the scoreboard, a secondary building that was on there. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, and so Masaba Bituminous was banking on, based on their bid, ability to salvage that as part of their bid process to recover costs associated with it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And so the change order is for more money? Is that correct?
Let me pull up what we had here.
And that's to compensate them for their bid. While you're looking at that, I'll bring Tom Nemenich from Masaba Bituminous up. Tom, would you turn that light on and hang on just one moment? Councilor Johnson?
Which email should we be referring to from this morning? What was the subject line or who sent it?
Did you send that email out to everybody?
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Yeah, could you hang on just one moment?
8:31 a.m.
1 moment, please. Thank you.
The email went out at 8:31 a.m.
So the forward, the approved? Okay, thank you. I didn't know which one to look at. So we're looking at the email from Pam at 8:31 a.m. with the subject line forward approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson, your question?
My question, just before we start this discussion, would be who actually owns the bleachers and the scoreboard? Was the school the actual owner of that?
Yes, that is correct.
So I'm not understanding why we're having this discussion if the school was the owner.
Well, the discussion is,
At the time,
go ahead, Carl.
go ahead, Mayor.
No, you go
Well,
ahead.
at the time of bidding the project out, we did not understand that the school owned the bleachers or the building or any of the, property that was permanent fixtures on that property.
Sure, I
was-
understand that, but I think that your ask then should be to the school, not to the city. I don't understand how the city is involved if it's school property.
We have no contract with the school district and have no control over that property.
And I don't understand how we would have control over the property either if we didn't own it.
We own the property, but you're,
At the time,
go ahead, Carl.
at the time, it was not made clear to Kraus Anderson or Wasabi Bituminous that that property was not the city's.
That's wrong. The property is the city's. It's not the building materials. And the building stuff is the school's.
Yeah, let's
Bleachers.
break it down here a little bit. Counselor Bearable is correct. So the property is owned by the city of Virginia. Right? So the bleachers that are on the property was owned by the school. The goalposts are owned by the school. The secondary building owned by the school. Although when the bids were taken for the demolition of that, apparently there was whether it's a miscommunication or whatever, there was unaware, there was that when you put the bid out, Carl, Wasabi Bituminous put a good faith bid in. They bidded based on having access to all that, including the bleachers, the goalposts, and those kind of things, because they thought that was salvage material. So part of their bid was for that in order to recover, and by selling that themselves. Now finding out that the city didn't own those, just owned the property, that the goalposts and the things and the bleachers and the others, which are salvageable materials, were no longer part of their bid, that now the school took that property that they own, or the materials that are on that property, the goalposts, et cetera. Now the Wasabi Bituminous can recover, their bid was based upon that. Now their bid is, they're not going to be able to salvage that material, so their cost to do so, they can't recover their costs associated with that. So we're here to try to figure that out. Does that make sense? Counselor Paulson?
Is that a question to me, Mayor?
Yeah, Carl, could you clarify for all of us, please?
Yes, that does make sense. That is accurate in your statement.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson?
It is clear, I understand that, but I think it's still, the issue is still the ownership. And I asked this question when we initially approved going forward regarding the bleachers. So I'm kind of frustrated that we're in this place when I'm not sure who should have done the due diligence, but I asked that exact question. And now, we should have found out, or someone should have found out, who the owner was of that property.
Well, I think we knew all along who owned the property. The question is, there was Carl Sanderson put the bid out under the assumption that the city owned all that, whether it was a miscommunication or not. I
think that's the issue that I have, is that it's based on assumptions instead of doing the actual research, bidding on what is the actual reality. And now we're finding ourselves in another situation. It's very frustrating.
Yeah,
and I should say not property, I should say material. Material, I need to maybe clarify that word, But again, if the city didn't own the material on the property, there's really nothing we can do. I don't understand how we have to be able to do something about this.
Well, I think Carl Sanderson is the construction manager of the project for the miners, and, there is a frustration on your part. I understand that. I think there's frustration on all our parts. I think there was a miscommunication there. I think we'll figure this out as we move along. Maybe we shouldn't be here right now, but we are. And so I'm going to ask Tom Nemenich from Masaba Batumis, who made the original bid, give us a little rundown on, did we explain that accurately?
Well, in the bid package, basically it was,
A little closer, thank you.
in the bid package, it was to remove the stadium, the bleachers, the building across the field, the goalpost, the flagpole, the concrete in front, the blacktop track. What else was there? What am I missing? The light poles, which is a huge part of it. Those are going to be pretty risky taking those down. So we gave our bid based on removing all that stuff. Well, as of yesterday, I talked to Steve Trudeau. I went and looked at them. I've been kind of following this the whole time just to see because they kept wanting a credit or whatever of how it was going to come down, and I wanted to see what was left. Well, the bleachers are obviously gone. The goalposts are gone. The fence posts are still there from the fence. The building across the field as of yesterday was still there, except for the garage door and the siding was off it and the windows. It may be gone, but so we gave them a credit for removing the pole, or still to remove the poles out of the field, but not taking the fence down. We gave a credit for if the building ends up being gone, but there's still a footing and foundation that needs to come out. The footing and foundations for the bleachers are still there that have to come out. The footing and foundations for the scoreboard, that scoreboard really didn't have any scrap value to us, but the poles might have, but the concrete and all the concrete that's gonna come out of there, it's not like it's, other than the stuff in front of the stadium, a lot of it's not recyclable because the fence posts all have metal in them, right? So to put a bunch of labor, it's all garbage. It has to be hauled to a demolition landfill, most of the stuff that comes out of the ground with the beams and stuff in it. So other than that, the other part of it was the bleachers had a significant value. I had another school district actually really wanted to buy them. I had the Ely baseball field. I was going to donate a portion to them to cover the thing next to the grandstand. So there was a reuse for those, so that was kind of a shock. So there was actually, even taking out the labor for taking and rolling up the fence, because that was supposed to be saved for like a construction fence on the site. We were supposed to roll it up. We still had to dispose of the poles. Giving a credit back for the shed across the way, we still have to take part of that out. So there was still actually, the value of those bleachers actually went up a little bit on our part.
Okay, so Holmes Recycling is on site. They're doing some recycling of those things, I see. Now, who hired them to do?
Dubid, or they bought them from Dubid. They were put up on an auction. The bleachers, and the only reason I knew about this was I had there was actually a dock manufacturer that wanted some of the aluminum. He called me, he goes, well, what's the deal? Am I going to get some of this? I said, well, it's on Dubid. So I was like, I don't
So
know.
the school put that on due bid?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
They put it on Dubid, and we tried to work through this behind the scenes, and then obviously it went to the auction, and I went back to the people that were interested in buying, and they said, well, go up so high, and we started bidding on it. I just seen where it was going, it was going to stop. And I actually went to Holmes after the fact, and it's actually worth more to him than what they were going to pay, so double.
So what was your original bid for the demolition? Was 144,000 something?
That's,
That was the total. That was the total bid for Kraus Anderson's management fee and everything included.
So what?
I think, Tom, your base bid was 114,000.
Okay, $114,000. So that was to include all those things that you talked about, the recycling of those kind of things. And so you gave a reduction
on the fence.
on the fence. So how much money was the reduction that you gave? Approximately.
Minus
I have it
6,000.
right in front of me, Tom, if you want me to read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Carl?
Originally, you had the voluntary alternate omit the salvation of the stadium lights. That was going to be a credit. if they could be left and they were sold or taken down or whatever, but that'll be a cost. And then when we came back to this afterwards, you had an additional cost of $16,000 for the bleachers and a credit to remove the fencing of $2,000.
Plus the shed was another,
Yeah, if the shed's removed, then another $4,000 credit. I don't know if the status of the shed as of, I think yesterday it was still on site.
still there yesterday.
So a total credit of approximately $22,000, is that correct?
Correct.
So 114,000 minus the 22,000.
Well, no, sorry. It'd be a credit of, or it'd be an added cost of $10,000 because of the bleachers. That was a added cost. The others were credit. The fence and the building, if left, is a credit.
Okay, Counselor Bearable.
That doesn't make sense to me. Why would it be an increase to you guys when you don't have to remove that stuff? It's gone. I'm looking at, it looks like that you're asking for a $15,000 increase in this project. Is that, am I reading this wrong or is that correct? Less the credits. You guys didn't remove that stuff. The school district did. So why are you having an increased cost? It doesn't make sense. I understand Mesabi been doing this because they had a salvage stuff in their bid, so they're losing dollars on this bid that they put in. So I understand why their bid was lower, but their costs haven't actually gone down that much.
Carl, could you
So
address
try to
that?
explain that to me, why you're going up
Yep.
from 144,000 up another bunch, or am I reading you wrong?
Go ahead,
So-
Carl.
Originally, the bid was 144,000. Now the bid that we submitted that I believe is in front of you is 159,391. Is that accurate?
So why is that? Why would it go up when stuff has been removed and sold by the school and you guys didn't have to touch it, or Mesabi Bit didn't have to touch it? Why are you
So,
increasing,
the
why are you
reason for the-
increasing their costs when their costs have gone down from the removal? They don't have the manpower, they don't have to use the equipment, or anything in that. That does not make sense to me. It should be going the opposite direction for Cross Anderson. You're screwing us on this.
Carl, would you answer that, please?
So the reason for the increase, Charlie, is due to the salvage value of those bleachers no longer being able to be captured by Mesabi Bituminous. So that's a $16,000 additional cost in their bid that we would manage. And then they are looking to give us a credit of $2,000 because now they don't have to remove the fence because that's gone. And then if the building, that two-story scoring building is removed, they'd be looking to give us a credit of $4,000. So really their bid, if the building is removed from the site, would increase by $10,000.
What you're trying to tell us is that you're taking the salvage costs and tacking it onto your bill that they've lost, that Mesabi Bit has lost. So you're gaining and Mesabi Bit is losing on this deal from the way I read it, unless we give them the extra $15,000 increase that you're looking for, and they should get that money directly then if they're losing on their original bid.
Correct. Their cost of their contract would increase, and that's rolled underneath our tabulation there that you're looking at in front of you. They would be paid that.
From you folks then. Because you're the main,
Hi, Carl and
because you're the main contract holder on
council.
this, right?
This is Steve Trudeau calling in also.
Okay, one of you guys answer that, please. The $10,000, who's paying for that?
The additional $10,000,
Yes, sir.
is that the,
Yeah, that's the question that Counselor Bearable has.
It-
Or the extra $15,000.
I couldn't hear it very clear. That's what we're asking the city to pay because of the miscommunication with the sale of those items that we didn't know about.
And
So-
this is Steve Trudeau also. I think I just heard a little bit of the last question from Councilor Baraboo. If I may, we're simply passing on to the city Mesabi Bituminous revised quote now that there's been revisions to what they originally quoted. Those revisions stemmed from the school district sale of various items. But largely, it was the bleachers. Mesabi has informed us that they had a buyer originally for those bleachers, that they felt they could get $25,000 for those bleachers. Obviously, they're now gone. So he's losing out on that sale, which affects his pricing. So his revised pricing to us took that into account. He's not, asking to raise his bid by 25, but he is raising it by 14. But as Carl pointed out, it can come down to maybe a raise of 10,000 if the two-story shed building is removed, which it's our understanding that was supposed to be removed, end of the day this past Sunday. But we'll have to find that out.
So does
So we're
this,
simply passing on
So it is
to you Mesabi's revised price to us for that increase.
so this is part of the demolition project. So the money that we received from the IRRB in the amount of $147,000, is this swallowed up, this additional increase swallowed up by that total demolition costs that were with the money that we're getting from the IRRB? Does that extra 10,000 cover that cost? Is that covered, or is this an additional cost that the city has to incur in the overall part of the project as we move forward?
Yeah, I think we're really asking for the 147 to now be 159,391 because of Mesabi's increase. That's really the only difference in our revised number besides, the percentage add-ons that go on top of that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Berber, you want to continue?
Mayor, Mr. Trudeau or Carl, it still doesn't make sense to me. Mesabi Bits, labor to take those bleachers down and stuff, they didn't incur any costs. They reduced their labor costs on their bid. Both of you guys are at fault. Mesabi Bit is an accidental recipient of this. I can see giving the 147 and a little bit more on this project, but I can't see the full 15,000 you're looking for above and beyond their bid because they've reduced their labor costs on this removal because other people have done it. They haven't done it. Why don't they give us credit for their labor costs on this? Because they must have calculated that in their salvage costs. I mean, I'm no dummy when it comes to this business stuff. So you're trying to make an additional profit above and beyond from what I can see on this. And don't tell me I'm wrong, because I'm not, because Mesabi Bit did not have any costs for removal of the fence, they didn't have any costs for removal of the bleachers, all that stuff, and manpower costs are the expensive part of this per hour wages and how long it would take them to do this. And the other things that they can do. Yeah, they lost their salvage stuff because we screwed up and you guys screwed up because we didn't know who actually owned the materials on that property. But I think you're asking way too much money for this.
Well, yeah, I think, before I go to Councilor Johnson, I think we did know that the school owned the bleachers. We knew that. But when we have Carl Sanderson with Steve and Carl on the line, for everyone to do their due diligence during the bidding process for Mesabi Bituminous, they bid this project out. So regardless of whether or not the increase is, it is what it is. But the question is, how does that get paid in the event that this moves forward, which is something between, Kraus Anderson and Masaba Bituminous, but being Kraus Anderson wants to put this, the onus on the city to increase the demolition for that purpose. So my question to Kraus Anderson, to you, Steve, or to you, Carl, is that in our construction manager at risk agreement that we have with you, is there an error in an omission clause in there that you can recover this cost from your insurance company as a result of that? So the city doesn't have to incur this cost and Masaba Bituminous doesn't have to suffer as a result of this? This could be, I think, easily remedied through that process. What is your response to that, Carl or Steve?
I can answer that. This is Steve. Certainly, we would have any errors and omissions as part of our contract if there was an error or omission on, our behalf that was caused by Kraus Anderson. This, in our view, was not caused by Kraus Anderson. It was simply caused by the school district, and we were relying on information provided by the city for sending out the quotes initially to demo the stadium and the contents that were on the property, including the bleachers and the fencing and those things, After we had quoted and provided the $147,000 price, which in turn turned into the IRRB grant, we then found out that the school district was having an auction. And this is solely due to that auction, and we feel this was out of our control and out of our knowledge, again, because we were relying on information that the city was providing us, that the premises was to be vacated. We were of the understanding on April 13th. And this auction didn't occur until last week. Over that weekend, I think it was due last Monday or Tuesday, I believe. So it really kind of caused us to have to go back to Masaba Bituminous, the low bidder, and ask them, what does this do to your previous proposal? Here are the items that the school district is now sold and will have removed from the property. There's certainly, to Charlie's point, there is labor credits, and I think we're seeing that to a certain extent. If we believe what Masaba is saying, and I have no reason not to believe that he had a previous buyer for those bleachers, $25,000. He's only asking for, a $16,000 ad. So essentially, he is crediting back the labor that they would have had involved in taking them apart. They still need to dig out all of the foundations and things that were part of those bleachers, keep in mind. Similar to the fencing, he is offering a $2,000 credit to not take down the fencing chain link material, but they still now have to go deal with all of the posts. So I thought that was fair, but I understand, where everybody's position is at. I mean, all in all, it's equating to about a $14,000 ad. But that, as Carl explained, would come down another $4,000. So it'd be a net ad of $10,000 if that two-story shed is removed by the school district, as we were told they would.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. So I've got some specific questions. How much work has Masaba Bituminous done on site as of right now?
None.
Nothing. So
Zero.
As of right now, Masaba Bituminous has expended $0.
Right.
How much work
That's
has
correct.
Kraus Anderson done on site as of right now?
Zero.
Okay, so far, the city has technically spent $0 on what has happened, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so if the material on property belongs to the school and they took some of it, why are they not responsible for removing the concrete and the other material that belongs to the school?
I think that's a great question. I cannot answer that. think that really is a good question between the city and the school district on what was negotiated for a property turnover purchase, however that was handled, and what the contents of the property would be at such time as it was turned over 100% to the city.
So then my other question that I've written down here is how much work needs to be done? Obviously, for you guys, is that what's reflected in this new bid? Is that because you can't sell or use anything else, it's actually going to cost more money and more time to do what's there?
Yeah, so
the
from
microphone,
Masabi's perspective.
Well, Masabi
essentially,
Bituminous is
you know,
here. If we could
initially
let,
saw
excuse
everything
me,
that was
excuse
there.
me,
They
excuse
go
me,
about putting their bids
excuse
together.
me.
Yep.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Well, Masabi Bituminous is here, so I would like them to share their perspective on it instead of you telling them what they should be doing. If you would, please, sir.
That's fantastic.
Okay, I guess basically the number that we gave for the job was to remove all the items as it was stated. We still need to take the track out. We still need to take all the footings, foundations out. We still need to demolish the stadium. The building, if it is not gone, but even if they take the building, there's still footings and foundations left there. The footings and foundations for the scoreboard, the goalposts, there's still 2 remaining goalposts that have to come out, plus the electrical, and then the big one is the lights, which are, we have to get a big crane in there to take them down, so that's not like it's just a simple task. So for the amount, that we bid for our part, and I guess maybe Steve could reiterate it, but I think the next bid that was above us on this demolition project was like almost $40,000 higher than what we bid. So we do a lot of demolitions around Virginia, all around the range, and a lot of times you go into these things and you look at what you can salvage, and I honestly never called a scrapyard on it. I started asking questions and I found, there was 2 different people that were actually interested in the bleachers. And the one that was really interested was another school district. And I was working with those people. So there was a significant value to taking those down. So, when we added on that extra money for the bleachers, we already had deducted our labor off of taking them apart. They actually were fairly simple to take apart. And they were going to actually bring trailers up. We were going to stack them on the trailers. They were going to take them. So,
Okay. All right.
I'm glad I came. I wasn't here for this, and we seen it on the agenda, so I stayed. And I just, it's not like we're trying to cut a fat hog on it and add on this after the fact. It just how it ended up. We gave a number. I don't know what the other contractors bid had put in for scrap value, but there's still a significant amount of work that has to be done. And the bleachers were taken into our perspective of what the cost of doing this job was. That yes. We still had labor to take them all apart, but there was more to gain by being able to sell the bleachers after the fact when they were gone. It's no different than for the house down across the thing here for the county building, whatever I-beams you might get or whatever that you haul to Radco or Homes after the fact. That's just a bonus over the top, so.
Okay. So we still have Counselor Johnson. And so let me ask this question first, if I may, Counselor Johnson.
Actually, Mayor, I'd
Go
prefer
ahead.
to
Go ahead.
continue. Thank you.
Please continue.
So the track has not been taken up yet, and that's recyclable, right?
Yep.
Okay. I guess this is just a frustration that that we have to have this discussion here at the council level, and that these questions weren't asked by Kraus Anderson to start with, to make sure they knew who had what. And I realize that our staff has been diligent since this came up to try to figure out, and the only records we have anywhere is from 1960-something that says we're gonna allow the school to use the property. Nobody seems to be able to come figure out where all the financial, when they purchased things, and I granted that's a long process. But it frustrates me that, is there no contingency funding for a $147,000 project either? Anybody?
This is Steve Trudeau again. Within the recap we provided to the city, again, which is a guaranteed maximum price, we did include a 3% contingency, which, amounted currently to $4,500.
So you just said it was a
Which we're happy
guaranteed,
to,
you just said it was a
Go
guaranteed
ahead.
price,
I'm
did you
sorry.
not?
yes, it was a guaranteed maximum price based on the original parameters of work that we were aware of at the time we had provided the original pricing together with Masabi Bituminous.
And did the city do anything to change that original scope of work?
Well, in essence, I guess we're not in control of the city's negotiations with the school district. So we're solely relying on the information provided to us from the city based on what was on the property at the time of the original bid letting or quoting.
I have nothing further, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. All right. I know, Matt, you had something you want to add. No, okay, so I think that maybe, there's a lot of blame going around, and maybe rightfully so. There's some miscommunication going, rightfully so. But, and I know this is an obstacle that we have to overcome. So here's my question. So I don't like this piecemeal stuff. Added this, added that, deduct this, deduct that, because, Masabi Bituminous gave an honest bid. It was based upon information that was flawed from Kraus Anderson, maybe from the city, whatever the case may be. But no work has been done by the city. No work has been done by Kraus Anderson on the site. No work has been done by Masabi Bituminous. Why don't we just look at rebidding this entire project? Rebid it based upon the needs where it is right now. Because I'm not going to make a decision to increase or decrease or have an expenditure. I know you're shaking your head, Councilor Bearable. Well, please, give me your thoughts if I finish, please. Thank you. But I think that's the best way to go. It wouldn't take that long to get it done. We have to have it done correctly. Masabi Bituminous has to have the right information. Kraus Anderson has to provide the right information. We now know what the correct information is. We all know what needs to be done. We all know what the scope of it is. The communication has now been clarified. We do know what needs to be done. School took their property. They did what they had to do. The bids were bid upon that. There was a change there. So to make an adjustment from my perspective is that I think this has to be rebid out. That's my personal perspective. I look for comments from the other councilor with respect to that. Councilor Bearable.
No, Mayor, I disagree with you 100%. We cannot rebid this project. There's a timeline on this if you look at what Kraus Anderson has done for the removal and stuff, because there's planning on starting construction this year. The bid process will take another month to go, plus everybody knows what Masabi Bituminous' bid is. That's going to be, because it's public information now, so it's unfair to Masabi bid. They were looking for salvage costs. I think if we could settle this for some type of contract directly to Masabi Bituminous for an additional $10,000, would that satisfy you folks on your loss?
Matt, could you answer that?
At the risk of getting in the middle of something here that I probably maybe don't want to, I thought maybe I'm listening to all of this as an outside party, as your city engineer, and I thought I might try to offer some clarification on what I can see is going on here.
Please do.
All right, so the original bid that Kraus Anderson, and again, I don't know this for a fact, but somebody chime in if I'm wrong. Kraus Anderson with Masabi Bituminous as their subcontractor, if you will, bid this project. And the bids that were put in by the contractors were based on the fact that they had access to everything on that site, including the bleachers, everything else that you're talking about. So if Masabi Bituminous had gone into this and said, hey, I'm not going to salvage any of this stuff, I'm going to bid it without any salvage value, the bid would have been $25,000 higher. than what it is. So instead of 147, it would have been 170 or whatever that number would have been. Instead, the way they bid the project was they went out ahead of time and did some due diligence to try to find a buyer for those so that they could, in essence, lower their bid because they're gonna make up a cost later on down the road. Once they get that equipment salvaged, they'll get paid for what it takes to do it. So they were able to lower their bid down to where it is right now. That's how they got to the 147, right? Or whatever yours was, but Kraus Anderson's markup, that's how they got there. Okay, so if they would have just said no salvage whatsoever, the bids would have been $25,000 or whatever the salvage value was higher. So now that those things are not salvageable anymore because they're not there, that's why you're seeing the increase in cost, because it would have been there to begin with. If you're trusting that Mesabi Bituminous built that into their bid, and I don't think anybody here has any reason to not trust them that that's what they were doing, right? I've watched them demo projects before, so I know for a fact that they do that. So when you're seeing the increase in cost, they're giving a deduct for the fence, they're giving a deduct for the building, but there's a flip around increase because they don't have that salvage value anymore of the bleachers. Does that make sense? I know that there's some are wondering why it's going up instead of going down. It makes perfect sense to me why it's going up. It may not be what everyone wants to hear. I mean, that's not the popular number that we want, but it makes sense to me at least why the costs went up. Now, Councilor Johnson asked a good question about if the school took the bleachers, they took this, why are they able to pick and choose what they're taking? That's a very legitimate question, I think. And if that ends up being the case, that somebody goes back and talks to the school and says, well, we had access to all of that stuff, maybe there's an opportunity for them to compensate the city for that. I don't know. But does that help at all clarify why the cost went up a little bit at least? Like, whether you like it or not is a whole nother matter. But does that make sense, Charlie, on why that went up?
I don't have a problem with the dollars because Mesabi Bit lost their salvage dollars.
Correct.
That's understandable. And you bid those. I've been around for 26 years, and when we have projects with tear downs, they always come in with a salvage behind the scenes,
Yep.
so their bids are lower.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
automatic
Yep.
and stuff on this. I don't want to see this project slowed up as a problem, and it could get slowed up significantly. They still have the hard work, pulling all the foundations, doing that stuff. The other stuff is not a huge cost, and Mr. Nemenich is right. They were pretty easy to take apart, but I think we need to maybe Britt talk to the school and see if they can reimburse, because the way that was bid out, the $15,000 or whatever it is to the city for their salvage costs. I don't know whether that'll happen or not, because the school doesn't have a lot of extra money on their project either. That's the big problem. They're going in a deficit on that too. So we just need to find an amicable way to get this done so we can finish the demolition on time. And I don't remember, Mr. Nemenich, when the time frame is for having that stuff removed, but I thought it was sometime by the end of April. Am I right or wrong on that? Yeah, and that's already a few days gone by already.
What you're probably going to see, just speculating, of course, but being around this, if you go rebid it and the salvage value isn't there, the bids are gonna go up from where they are right now.
Exactly right.
So they're not gonna come in at 147 because the salvage value is no longer there, and the effort to still pull it out is still going to, you're probably gonna see about a 159, which is where you're at now.
Good point.
Right?
Good point, thank you.
That's
So,
an excellent point. I never thought about that.
yeah, good, thank you, Matt, very good point, thank you kindly. We'll go to Counselor Freelieb, then to Counselor Johnson, and then we'll go to the phone lines. Counselor Freelieb.
Well, these things get complicated. I can't believe it, but it seems to me that, okay, I can understand in the original bid from Mesabi Bituminous that you took into consideration the salvage value you'd have from that material. I guess my concern would be when it became immediately apparent that that salvage value was being taken out from underneath you, there should have been an intervention of communication with the school district of some sort to say, time out here, if you need it, then we need to renegotiate that. Or was that, had to have been communication with the city, not the school district, or the city and the school district?
Yeah, right, correct.
Now, I don't know who, if anybody, was aware of what the city was doing with do-bid and so on. So, I mean, to my understanding, in a sense, it's like you bid fairly and accurately based on your previous experience, but there was a mistaken assumption that you're gonna have salvage from that project.
Come on up, Mr. Demenich.
Have to push, is it on?
No, you're good.
The only reason I knew that the stuff was for sale on that do-bid auction was one of the fellows that wanted some of the decking that builds docks called me and he said, "Oh, you realize this stuff is on do-bid?" That was on a Friday, I believe, when the guy called me.
But you continued to dismantle and provide that salvage material to whoever was gonna be taking it then, or, I mean?
No, we didn't have, the person that bought it took it.
Okay, and they dismantled it themselves?
Yep.
Okay.
So what we did is we deducted what our cost and labor would be to take it apart
But then, I
and
mean,
subtracted it off what we could have sold.
that's
it
why
for.
I'd be confused if they rebid it, why, if all of that material's now gone and that value has been expended, then why would it be a higher?
Because in Masabi Bituminous' original bid, they had deducted off so much of the value of the salvage, and that salvage is no longer gonna be there. So yes, they deducted $10,000 already in their change order to account for some of the labor that they would have had into removing that already. So there was I heard the guy say earlier, there was a $25,000 salvage value, and they're only asking for $15,000. So that $10,000 differential was the added labor that they would have had into removing the things that are already gone.
And so it kind of befalls on the city now then to communicate with the school district to say that we need some of the cash from the value of your salvage for us to be right with our contractor. I would think, I don't know. I don't know what they got for it, but they owe us $10,000 out of it, as far as I'm concerned.
That would be our negotiated, that secondary aspect going there. And
That
asking the
seems to
school
be
for
where
that.
now the communications have to be applied to be able to rectify the loss that Masabi Bituminous is facing.
Right, and I think that's the other part of our attempt to recover, whatever. If we're going to award it, then try to recover from the school.
I
Matt,
mean,
did you, I'm sorry.
Was anybody at the city informed that, I mean, with any kind of timeline for us to react to it by the school district, that they were gonna be taking the value from the salvage materials in the process?
Very, very, very short notice.
That's what I'm
because they-
saying, it's like, they're,
Yes. Yes.
and so there needs to be communication from the city standpoint to the school district that we didn't have the time to react to that, and now we're being stuck with a $10,000 bill that you should share with us. I mean, if they got 25 grand out of whatever they salvaged, give us 10 of it and you keep 15 or whatever. I mean, that's where I think we need to move on behalf of them.
Right, and the school hired Holmes Recycling to take apart all that stuff, because they were out there all the last couple of days. He bought it from them. He bought it on do bid from the school. Okay, thank you.
And from a negotiating standpoint, from the city's point, you could say, then it's your responsibility, school district, to get the footings out of there and all the rest of the material that you owned as well. Or, you know what I mean? If you want to incur the cost of that.
That was kind of the joke that I made when I talked to Steve on the phone. I said, well, if they're gonna take the bleachers, they might as well take the lights down too, because that's a huge cost in itself just to take those lights down. Very dangerous and down, you know? I mean, I was just being sarcastic on the phone when we were talking about this, that, you know, if they're gonna do that stuff, you know, and I'm not trying to make a wave for the school or none of the other stuff. I mean, basically, we bid it based off of how we bid it. And they sold the bleachers, they ended up selling for like $9,900, so $10,000. And I tried calling him to see if he'd be interested in selling them to the other party, and he wanted double of what I was gonna sell them for, just for us to get them. So, I mean, there was significant value, much, you know, and it wasn't like I did a lot of shopping around, like, to find out what the aluminum weight was and that kind of stuff. I just found people that were prospectively quickly looking for something like that. You seen how quick they came apart as far as they're all bolted. I mean, there was a value, and I guess that's why we went up, you know. Like I say, I wasn't here for this particular reason. I'm glad I am, just so we don't look like.
No. Well, we know the history now. I mean, we've regurgitated it over and over again. We can't change the past. We got to figure out what we're going to do now for this particular issue in the future. So I'll go to Councillor Johnson, then to Councillor Baraboo, and then we'll go to the phones. Councillor Johnson.
So to move forward, we need to communicate with the school to make sure they either A, have everything they want, or B, are going to finish taking out what's left. Who would do that and how does that get
That
done?
ain't gonna work.
I can call today.
Okay, because I do appreciate, and it makes more sense, I'm a math teacher. And so when we first started this discussion, the math wasn't adding up. So I truly appreciate your point of view, Matt, and being able to come in objectively and explain it. Because I hope we have learned a lesson from this as we move forward with future demolition portions of this project to make sure we know well in advance who owns the blue chairs, who owns the whatever it is inside the buildings that we're going to be taking down to continue this project. Because we can't sit for another 2 hours and do this because the blue chairs were purchased half by the Hockey Association and half by Parks and Rec. And we really need to make sure, and I'm sure that with a little nudge, Brian will be all over this, because that's the one place where I'm at, is I don't see Brian even having considered that there was any other options. And I think that's the big thing, that we just didn't know which questions to ask. And I like that we talked about what the bidding would look like, because I think that's helpful. I will slow down the process, and after all of this, I guess I am comfortable with us, if we can. I mean, there's this, because this was, and I don't know where the money's gonna come from. I would like to think that Kraus Anderson would take some responsibility and be willing to work with us a little bit, that they weren't diligent also on asking the right questions, because that's something they like to tell us, or have told me, that I didn't ask the right questions. So now I'm asking the right questions, that we can find some compromise in getting you the money you need to get your project done. And that's where I'm sitting right now, is there's a 40, whatever it was, the 3% contingency there. That's almost half of the project. Maybe Kraus Anderson can come up with some, and we only have to come up with the city of $4,000 or $5,000 instead of the whole amount. So I guess I don't know that I'm ready to make a decision today, but I'd like to see a plan as how to move forward for this when we officially move on it at the council meeting on Tuesday. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And from my perspective, I want to see this taken care of. I think we have an ethical obligation to Kraus Anderson. I mean, ethical obligation to Mesaba Patum State, be the proper bids, move forward that, let's get it done. In my opinion, I'd like to go ahead and move forward with a request for the change order to approve that and try to recover the costs through some other source, through Kraus Anderson, the school, or some negotiated process, try to do that. But I think, in light of, because I asked for maybe to rebid, I think it was a good answer why we shouldn't, and I understand that. So I'm not advocating that, but am advocating, I think we have to award the money and then the change order, and then try to recover it elsewhere. I think we got to keep this project on track. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because if we pass this off and push it to the school, they're gonna have to go out and rebid anyway, and that's can't do that for $15,000. Isn't worth doing this. So I think Kraus Anderson, Sabi Bituminous came in with a $114,000 bid, correct? And this is $140-some thousand. So does Kraus Anderson deserve $30,000 in fees for the work that they did to putting a contract and stuff together? I think they need to participate in part of this loss that the city's going to incur. Because I think that's an excessive amount when we had a contingency of such and such a percentage on this whole project. With this being separate, that contingency is increased by 25% instead of the 15% or wherever they had in originally. And I think that's getting them a whole, how do I want to put this, to not be nice, giving them a windfall on this particular project. Salvi Bituminous, unfortunately, is the loser on this because of their salvage losses. So I think, Mayor, you're correct. We move ahead, and then we worked with the school district, we worked with Kraus Anderson to get this $15,000 increase back, because we already have the grant that covers it, most of it anyway. So that's where I'll go. And I'm going to make a motion that we for the council meeting, that we authorize the change order to bring to the council meeting on Tuesday, where we're going to have further discussion.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Counselor Bearable. Is there support? Is there support?
To bring the $15,000 change order to the council on next Tuesday is very, very simply put for further discussion. Because we can't waste these timelines. Well, yeah, that's what they're asking for, $15,000, correct? That's what I saw in the memo. Am I wrong on that? Or are they just asking for 10? It says 15 in there. Bottom line is I don't see their current revised quote changing much, so we're looking for about $15,000 increase to the project, is in the memo. If it's less, that's fine too, if we can settle out, what did you say, Matt, 12? Well, they had 144, but 147, so that's,
The 147 was the dollar amount we got from the IRRB, which included the 2750 for the material testing at the miners for hazardous materials.
yeah. It is
So, yeah, so
144.
144 was the quote for the demo itself, and then 159 now.
Yeah. Deduct, okay, that was still there as of this morning, because I saw it. Yeah, it's still there. At least when I came
Well,
early.
we'll have to notify the school, you taking it or not?
Well, let's change that motion then to authorize the change order of, to be $15,000 less any credits that may come back for the removal of any additional items.
Okay, so repeat your full motion, and hopefully Pam will have that recorded.
Yeah. Motion would be to approve the $15,000 change order less any credits for materials that may be removed for credit off of the property.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Counselor Bearable. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Counselor Freely. Any further discussion? We'll go to Counselor Barnzelli. Do you have any discussion?
Thank you. Councilor Bearable, how did we end up paying for this thing? We only own the land. They're getting money off of the scrap there, all that stuff that they're taking down the school. Why do we have to pay? Why is the city of Virginia paying the school?
Because that's the way, Carl, the contract was put together because of lack of communication, not putting all the stuff together. Now, there's another scenario, I don't even want to bring it up, but Cross Anderson is the construction manager for both the school and for our project. They should have been coordinating what the school was doing along with what we're doing on this. That wasn't done. They've got two separate construction managers, individuals that are taking care of this. They're not talking to each other. That's the big bottom line on this.
Well, the
And-
bottom line
and-
for me
But we
is,
can't hold up this project.
where are we
That's
gonna get the money?
$15,000 a drop in a bucket.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got contingency
15 here,
funds.
30 over there, 45 here.
One at a time.
You want to hold up this
Whoa, whoa,
whole
whoa, whoa,
project?
hey,
No, no,
hey, one
no,
at a time
that's
here.
okay.
Let, Carl, you get the floor. Finish what your comment are, Carl. You done? Okay, Counselor Bearable.
There's a motion on the floor if you want to vote for it, Carl, but you cannot stop this project because then it's going to put a year behind time. We can't do that. The money's there. We got to start spending it. It's all grant dollars and going to be bond dollars in this project. We already have $15 million. What is it, 15 million, Mayor? 12 million.
Yeah.
Dollars in this project. My motion is just to approve the $15,000 change order less any credits that may come back from the salvage of this product. They've already said there might be 4,000, they've said another 2 already, so it's not gonna be hardly any money, it's just a change order. Masabi bid it out based on salvage. They didn't get the salvage, so we gotta work it out later on with the school district and Cross Anderson to get that 15,000 back. Well, we don't know that. We have to talk to them. We have to talk to them. You have to have our administrative people talk to them.
Yeah, the motion on the floor is to bring it forward, pay the change order, less any potential deducts based on some credits that we will receive as a result of any action that's taken on the school with respect to the shed, et cetera. So a maximum of $15,000, it could be less. I think we're looking forward, Councilor Barnzelli, is to try to find another way to recover those costs associated with that through the school district and Carl Sanderson by negotiating that out, but not to delay the project moving forward. Does that kind of clarify things for you? Okay, very good.
Carl, I'm sorry I got angry with you.
Okay, let's, Councilor Paulson, did you have any questions, comments?
I do. I have a couple questions.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, I never heard the clarification if the IRRB, if there was additional funds. I didn't hear Britt respond to you, Mayor.
Go ahead, Britt, how much money did we get in the grant from the IRRB?
We got 147,000 based on the estimate I had at the time. We were awarded the full amount.
Okay. Okay, and I think I need to make clear, my intention is not to short Mesabi by 2 minutes. I need to make that very clear. I also feel that I can't support the city spending this money. If Kraus Anderson is the construction management company, I feel that it is Kraus Anderson's responsibility to reimburse Mesabi by 2 minutes. My question would be to Steve Trudeau is, what information was given to you from the city and who gave you that information?
Yes, this is Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We worked together with Brian Silber and Britt Sebenis to understand the contents of the property at the time we were requested. You know, again, we worked on behalf of the city, so that's all we're doing is just working on your behalf. We met with IRRB. They said they would help pay for the demolition of the stadium. Can we, isolate that and go get some quotes? We just needed 3 quotes. We did that, and we brought those quotes back to the city for consideration. And that in turn turned into the grant request to IRRB. So those quotes were based on the information of, of the contents of the property at the time we went and requested those quotes.
And was that in form of a document, Steve, given to you from city administration?
We did not receive any formal document in terms of, I don't know. We still don't have, if there is a copy of whatever kind of a transaction was made between the city of Virginia and the school district. We're not aware of that, or we've not been given a copy of that.
I guess I was just asking when you made the comment that you went out for bids based upon information that was provided to you by the city. I'm asking what that information was, and was it in writing?
No, I don't believe it's in writing. It was conversations that we had as a project team on where we were moving forward.
So my issue with that is, as the construction management company, that would have been your responsibility to find that out and get it in writing from whatever entity it needed to come from. So I just can't vote yes for the city to put this bill.
Okay, any further comments, Councilor Paulson?
No, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Beyondich?
No, I think I'm ready to vote.
Okay, thank you. Did you have your light on, Councilor Freelieb, earlier? No? Okay. Councilor Johnson?
Just a clarification, we're not voting to whether or not to reimburse today, we're voting to send it to city council meeting. So I just want to clarify that since we're not spending money today, that's the vote we're taking, as opposed to, yes, we're going to pay them, which is a different vote and a different requirement. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're voting to move this to the city council for a formal vote. That is correct, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Freely.
Just one question, Steve, did you mention the fact that like there is a contingency of about 3% that you factor into your bids?
Yes, I did. That's correct. And listening and appreciating everybody's input to this project and trying to minimize this ad request, we are happy, to remove that contingency from our current pricing recap, which again is a guaranteed maximum price, but we're happy to do that. If I may, I want to try to add a little history and clarity to the process for everybody to think about a little bit and how we're at where we are today. So we had a project that was going to be all one project to build a new miners complex. It encompassed demolition of existing things that were on the current property, an arena, a back building, a stadium, a track, everything that's there. Not sure, what the school district was taking or not taking, but it was one project. As we moved forward, we needed to separate this into 3 different categories because of the funding sources you would be receiving. And that's how we got to today. So we're really just kind of isolating this stadium demo as the first piece of that funding pie, if you will, because you have now successfully gotten the grant dollars from IRRB. Yes, there's some things that have changed. Yes, we certainly admit we should have asked for better written clarity on who owned exactly what. So we do take some responsibility for that. I am happy to take that contingency off, and it's a contingency that's not our money, that it's your money in the end. I mean, we're just trying to protect, the project and have some contingency dollars should anything arise as we get into the demolition. But, with Tom Nemenich there, if we all agree that, there's pretty low risk at this point. I mean, it's taking out a building and a track and getting rid of everything that's in the way. So because we broke the project into 3 pieces, it's the starting of the overall project, right? We're going to roll right from this into the next piece of the project, which is the site improvements, start doing full clearing and grubbing and getting ready to excavate and start pouring building foundations for the new arena. So our on-site management and supervision time, again, we simply broke it into a schedule in terms of time. That's why you're seeing our cost on top of Mesabi's bid is to help manage for 3 weeks' time this demolition process. If we get that done in 2 weeks' time, that's a direct savings that, again, under the guaranteed maximum price, we're not going to charge for. So I'm comfortable in telling everybody, if we can get this done in 2 weeks, that's an $8,000 savings. If we can minimize the contingency, we probably don't need to ask for anything, provided that 2-story shed building is removed by whoever bought it, as we were told it would be gone by Sunday. Then that would equate to another $4,000 savings, and essentially I don't think we need to ask for any money.
Yeah, Steve, this is Gary again. Just real quick, I guess what I'm trying to clarify in my head, like what the potential credits would be. And if it's a 3% contingency on the 147 from you, that's about $4,400 we could be credited potentially from Crouse Anderson. And $4,000 on the demolition of that building by somebody else, that's another $4,000 on top. So I'm anticipating credits that would make it more palatable for us to be able to vote to rectify the loss in the salvage value that Mesabi Bituminous is incurring.
And just a recap that we have a motion and a second on the floor to move this to the city council. we're not voting to award it now. We are just voting to move it to the city council for a formal vote. So I think that's important to note as well. And so in between that period of time, maybe some additional information will be forthcoming, as we talk to Carl Sanderson and talk to the school district about whatever the case may be. But looking at the overall scheme of this, entire project, there's some frustration with communication, things that's fine. But the bottom line is that the project needs to move forward. We find a way to rectify this. And, and I'm not saying that we're micromanaging. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that this is a small piece of a larger project. And so as long as everybody's on the same page, I think it's important. I think all the city elected officials want to be on the same page and have a good base knowledge. What's happened in the past, we got to figure out so it doesn't happen in the future, but we have to move forward with the proper decisions as proposed here. So it has been moved and supported to move this project, or move this change order request for the Ewens Field demolition to the city council meeting for a formal vote. Pam? Did you get that? Did you get that motion?
Here. Okay. Yes, I did get the.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Anyone else? No further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No by Councillor Paulson and Councillor Beyondich?
Correct.
You're a no or a yes?
No.
So,
Okay, I will do the roll call.
yeah, roll call, please, Pam.
Friedlieb,
Yes.
Friedlieb,
Yes.
Paulson,
No.
Beyondich,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Baranzelli, Cuffey,
Yes.
Baraboo.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2. Thank you. Anything else from Matt? Anything else, Mr. Nemenich and staff? Nothing else? Okay. Corey, you're in the audience as a listening voice, right? Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next topic then.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the resolution ordering the repair or removal of hazardous conditions located at 117 3rd Street North. You will recall this house has had 2 fires in it. It's just time to get it down. The owner's been notified. He was notified in December that we were going to take this action. Then a fire occurred. He still has not done anything. We have been in contact, and he has not corrected the matter. We want to move forward with the legal process.
Okay, thank you. Steve Trudeau, are you still on the line? Carl?
Yes, I am.
Oh, Carl and Steve, thank you very much for your input. There was a motion on the floor to move forward to bring this item to the city council for a vote next Tuesday. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next subject. What's the address once again? I'm sorry, Britt.
117 3rd Street North.
117 3rd Street North, okay.
I will move to authorize the proper procedures by city staff to remove the hazardous materials and associated actions.
Moved by Councillor Johnson to move forward with the resolution to order the demolition of the hazardous structure located at
17 3rd Street North.
117 3rd Street North. Is there support? Support by Councillor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Friedlieb.
Has there been any return communication from the owner of the building? Okay, and they're aware of this? Okay.
Any further discussion? Councillor Paulson? getting there. We're working it through. Any further questions or comments on the motion, Counselor Paulson?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Beyondich?
No.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Barnzelli?
Thank you, Mayor. This house has to come down. It there's 2 fires been in that place and it's vacant. So, could start on it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. And the city staff has spent significant time both trying to work with the property owner and securing the property to keep it safe. I happened to be driving down Second Avenue and Fire Marshal was out there again with his screw gun and plywood just last week. So it's time, and I appreciate the council's willingness to move forward.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a haven for squatters, as is other projects, hazardous places as well. We're trying to alleviate and mitigate. So further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Counselor Paulson? Aye. And Counselor Beyondich, all ayes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
I have no further items.
Okay, thank you. All right. That was longer than I had anticipated, but it's good discussions moving forward. So thank you, everybody. There are no other items of concern to come before the committee of the whole meeting. We will stand adjourned to our next council meeting, which is Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. on April the 28th. And 4:30 is for the reconvening of the Board of Review, with the council meeting following at 5:30. Thank you. We stand adjourned.
I know, I got who's on there.
I hear.
What?
Guys,
You need something, Mayor?
Thank you very much.
He was just checking to make sure you had the list of who was on there, Pam, but I have a list for you in case you didn't get everybody. Mm-mm.